If you want to get in the groove, mask up to get down and make sure you stay 6 feet from stardom. Today, on A Place of Our Own, chew on this, a global culinary road trip without ever leaving home. Well, except for a few trips to the Whole Foods market. It's all coming up next. What's up? I'm Pete Charles Sesko, and welcome to Thrift Store Rundown's Place of Our Own, a place designed for any millennial or baby boomer who wants to bring Hollywood home on a budget. As you know, every interaction you have with your favorite celeb or fellow fandom friend is a very important learning opportunity. So when it comes to educating yourself about the wonderful world of pop culture, we're all in this together. That's right, TSI is your first and coolest teacher. Today, we're embarking on a culinary odyssey. And it's not just any other culinary odyssey, especially when you have one of the Emmy award-winning co-hosts of ABC's The Chew as your guide, Carla Hall. Purchase for 50% off of the price of $3.49 we have Carla's Comfort Foods, favorite dishes from around the world, published by HCF Books. I'm going to throw it over to Carla to explain more about this book, which offers up plenty of comfort food for your tummy, for your mind, for your body, and for your soul. Today, on the Thrift Store Rundown's Place of Our Own.
Believe I'm on my second cookbook, and after doing the first cookbook, Cooking with Love, I realized that I had a lot more to say, and I wanted to do a book where I'm sharing the way that I feel about people, and I love people, and I love hearing their stories about where they come from. So I wanted to show how we do things in America, or at least how I do it in the South, and then how maybe somebody in Hungary is doing the same thing, the same technique, maybe with different spices. I think the readers will love this new book because, first of all, it is so colorful. It is colorful and the pictures jump out at you. And even if you don't want to cook, there are so many pictures to inspire you, to make you want to travel. The way that it is broken up into categories, so there are these little icons at the top of the page. So if you're looking for something American, you can hone in on those American recipes. And I take either an ingredient and show you how to use it, so I have all these veggie chapters, or I take a technique that shows you how to do that particular thing and gives you the breadth of maybe 4 or 5 different ways to use that technique. You're going to learn a lot from this cookbook. A lot of people wonder, especially me coming from the South, they think that if I say I love comfort food, that it is Southern food. It's collard greens and cornbread and black-eyed peas and macaroni and cheese. And yes, it is. And those are the things that I love and I enjoy them. But I'd like to say that I enjoy comforting foods. And I think that those foods that you may have sitting around a table with your family, talking about whatever, but the foods that you go back to when you're feeling homesick or when you're missing someone, that's your comfort food. I feel that I'm a very intuitive cook. That's always been my approach. I didn't start cooking until I was about 25. So it's always been about the way that I taste food, and I think that that's because of my grandmother and having just really delicious but light food growing up. My approach is to get in the kitchen, to mess up. If I mess up, that's okay because it's all about the recovery, but to have fun and to explore and to try new things. And that's also what this book is about. I want you to travel through spices. I want you to feel comfortable that whatever decision you make, whatever spices you pick up, it's because you like them. Don't do them because I said this works in this recipe. You're gonna make some mistakes, but you know what? You're gonna have a lot more successes if you're willing to make those mistakes.
You know how at TSI we're always trying to get more culturally in tune to our world? Well, this month is National Hispanic Heritage Month. It runs from September to October 15th. That being said, the primary focus of this review will be on Spanish cuisine. There are 3 Spanish recipes I want to show you. And there's also Mexican and Latin cuisine in this book, and all three cuisines I mentioned are quite interchangeable. But, hey, Hispanic, Spanish, Hispanic, they have a rhyme to it. So, let's get on with it. The very first dish we're going to feature, and the very first dish of this book overall, is tomato water gazpacho, which serves 6. The first time I've ever heard of gazpacho was while watching the movie Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. That is an Oscar-nominated film from an Oscar-nominated director, the famed Pedro Almodovar. The character makes a chunky batch in a blender and spikes it with sleeping pills. When I got around to creating my own version, I decided to make it super smooth instead. In fact, the soup itself is well-seasoned tomato water, and the vegetables go on top as a garnish. It's an elegant way of serving a traditionally rustic soup and great for making ahead since it strains overnight. Overnight? You mean to tell me that this is not going to be a one-day thing? Ah, jeez. But hey, anything that was inspired by an Academy Award nominated film of a foreign language, I assume, I'm game for. You'll find many of cooking tips, from ingredient substitutions and lots of ethnic ingredients used throughout right here in Carla's tips. And, of course, chock full of photography, as Carla mentioned. But the finished recipe photography is really uneven. It's all over the place, and there's not a lot of it. And it's my primary complaint with this. On to number 2. Paella with chicken, chorizo, mussels, and shrimp. A staple of the Spanish diet. Think of this as a chicken dish that contains seafood, not as a seafood dish. The shrimp and mussels bring a sea saltiness, but it's really about the chicken juices running into the rice and making this one-pan meal super satisfying. On my first attempt, I found it tricky to get the seafood cooked, but not overcooked, while cooking the rice to a perfect al dente chewiness. I discovered that the secret is to add a blast of heat at the very end of cooking. Not only does it finish the seafood, it also adds the rich toastiness to the rice because, you know, if you tried this before, one of the best parts about paella is that crunchy rice at the bottom of the pan that adds a textural element to it. Ah, nice. The recipe's continued on the next page, although you are treated to a scrumptious looking photograph that guarantees you some motivation when you're making this. You want to get to that particular end result, right? If you don't have the very expensive saffron, you can use a teaspoon of turmeric instead. Saffron, as you know, is one of the most kickiest spices. And it takes a tremendous amount of saffron plants to make just a tiny pinch of saffron. That's why it's so super expensive. Yet it produces a really robust flavor that has a certain je ne sais quoi to it that you can't get from more conventional ingredients. You might have to make a trip to the ethnic foods aisle to get some of these ingredients. Let's just put it that way. Finally, a quince corn cake. What? I've never heard of a traditional Spanish corn cake. Well, that's because it really doesn't exist. I kept seeing recipes for a Brazilian corn cake with guava paste. I was excited about trying the guava corn cake, but when I got to the store, I couldn't find guava anything, anywhere. What I did see in the cheese section, though, were pretty packages of membrillo, a solid jelly-like paste made of quince. It's similar in taste and texture to guava paste. You've probably seen it on a cheese plate somewhere. I have, on Chef John's cheese plate, foodwishes.com. Heard of him? Yeah, I have. He's awesome. I think it's nice scattered throughout this easy peasy cake. So it's more like a snack cake, a little savory snack cake. Depending on what additions and spices you might add to this to make it your own variation. You'll find lots of great notes finding all these recipes and ingredients and the inspiration for them right here in Sharing the Love and other mini essays, much like this one, sprinkled throughout. Another really cool thing I want to show you is at the very beginning of this book, an international spice chart showing you the kinds of spices used throughout cooking throughout the world, and which geographical category of recipes they best pair with the most. Taste and travel the globe with spices. If you're not into the 3 categories of cuisine which I mentioned, Mexican, Latin, Spanish, there's also American cuisine, of course, God bless the USA, lots of Southern cuisine, that's Carla's specialty, but there's also Brazilian cuisine. There's also, there's a lot of nice cuisines out there. I'm just keeping it to the Spanish side and the American side because I'm a little bit of both, Puerto Rican, American, but we also have Indonesian cuisine, and Indian cuisine, and Japanese cuisine. We are really traveling the world with Carla's comfort foods. But because of the lack of finished recipe photographs, I gotta ding it a little bit. I'm gonna give it the usual standard 4.5 out of 5 claps. But think of it this way. Not only are you saving money by purchasing this at the thrift store, but you're also saving a big lot of money, like $1,000-something on plane fare, by not traveling across the globe to taste all the cuisines and regional specialties featured in this cookbook, no matter how authentic they might be. That's some comfort food for thought right there, from the Hall of Global Delicacies. Get it? The Hall of Global Delicacies? The Hall of Global Delicacies. If I can't teach a decent pun, what's the point? Class is dismissed for the day, but if you missed any classes, get caught up by clicking the link in the description below, which will take you to the Too Cool for School playlist, which also includes videos from last year's series. Thanks for joining us, and make sure to subscribe for when it comes to bringing Hollywood home and to the classroom on a budget. TSR is your first and coolest teacher. We'll see you next time on the flip side on A Place of Our Own.